Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, starting with the new Mishnah on the bottom Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. The subject of our Mishnah is Trumas Chametz that is eaten by a non-Kohen on Pesach. What is his din in terms of paying back the requirements for one who eats Truma? Now, Truma in general is when a person has a field, the very first thing that he takes out from his crop and he is mafrish is Truma, a portion that goes to the Kohen. Midiaraisa, it's any amount. Midirabanan, it's 1/40th if he's an Ayin Toiva, 1/60th if he's an Ayin Ra, and if it's 1/50th as a Beinonis. Al Koponim, when a person then is mafrish the Truma, that Truma is Kodesh, and only a Kohen can partake, he and his household, for eating the Truma. If a non-Kohen eats the Truma, then if it's Bishoigeg, he must return the principal, the Karen that he ate, as well as add a Chomesh. Now this must be done with produce that can be done, will become Truma after giving it back to the Kohen. However, if he eats the Truma b'mezid, he's chayev misa b'dei shamayim, and he has to return the karen like gezela. And here, he can return it with money, because that which he returns, even if it's going to be produce, does not become Truma. Says the Mishnah, ha'oichel trumas chametz ba'pesach, b'shoigeg, mishalem karen v'chomish. A person who is a non-Kohen, who eats Trumas Chametz on Pesach. That means to say that he's eating Truma B'shoigeg. That which he eats, which is Trumas Chametz on Pesach, he returns the Karen, the principal amount of what he ate, and he adds a Chomesh. And again, it has to be Tavua, because it will become Truma in the Kohen's hands once again. The Mishnah goes on to say, B'mezid poter mitashlumin. If he instead ate the Truma b'mezid, so then, presumably, according to one explanation of this Mishnah, he is going to be potter from tashlumim, because since he's like a gazlan, it's considered to be gezela. Here, it doesn't have any worth, because it's chametz on Pesach. So therefore, he's potter from tashlumim. Similarly, the Mishnah goes on to say, umidmei eitzim, the value of the eitzim that you would be using to burn and use it as fuel or other benefit, that also would be potter, because again, you can't have any benefit from chametz on Pesach, and therefore it's valueless. This chametz, this trumas chametz, doesn't have any value that he would have to pay back. The Gemara now quotes the following Mishnah Tanan Hasam. It states in Trumos, ha'oichel truma b'shoigeg meshalem keren v'chamish. One who eats truma b'shoigeg, a non-kohen, who eats truma b'shoigeg, he must return the principal amount that he ate and add a chomesh, a fifth. The Mishnah goes on to say, echad ha'oichel ve'echad ha'shoise ve'echad ha'sach. The consumption is either by eating it or drinking it, or if it's oil, by rubbing it on one's body. Echad truma tmeya ve'echad truma tahira mishalim chomesh. Whether it's truma tahira or truma tmeya, he must add a chomesh in addition to the keren that he has to pay back the kohen with. The Mishnah concludes v'chumsha dechumsha, that a fifth of the fifth, meaning to say that if he were to then consume that truma from the kohen, then he said before, he pays back a keren and he adds a chomesh. If he were to then consume again, then he would have to then pay additional chomesh on top of the keren that he then consumes again, and so on until he continues to then consume. He will have to then continue to add the principal as well as the chomesh. Ask the Gemara the following question: Iboilahu. We're on the third line of Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Kishehu mishalem, when he does pay back the non-kohen to the kohen, lefi mida mishalem or lefi dami mishalem. When he ate b'shoigeg, this truma, and now he has to then pay back, what does he pay back? Does he pay back lefi the midah, the amount of what he consumed, or lefi the damim, the value of what he consumed. Over here we're talking about, again, since it was done b'shoigeg, he must return produce that will itself become truma back in the hands of the kohen. So now we want to understand, what is it that he has to pay back? Is it the, again, midah, the amount of what he had consumed? Or is it the damim, the value of what he had consumed? Gemara explains this question. Kol heicha demi kara shavia arba zuzi uleviso shavia zuzi lo tiboilach. If it was first, when he consumed it, worth 4 zuz, and then now when it's time to pay back, it's only worth 1 zuz, that's already not what we're asking. Because the Gemara understands that's a davar pashut, that he's going to have to pay back the 4 zuz, the time of consumption. Because certainly when it comes to over here, he's not any less than somebody who stole from somebody else. And a thief must pay back b'shas that which he ate, that he consumed, that he stole from. And therefore, so too over here, when he consumed it and he stole it from the kohen, then that truma was worth 4 zuz, and that's what he have to pay back. How do we know that a gazlan must pay back b'shas the gzela? This nan, it states in the Mishnah. Kol hagazlonin mishalmin kishas hagzela. So therefore, that would not be the question, because vadai, everybody would agree that over here we would have to pay the fee, the damim, the value b'shas of the achila. Kiti boy loch de mikora shavya zuza ulvesov shavya arba. Here the question is in the opposite. When it first was worth only 1 zuz, the time of consumption, and then when it's time to pay back, it then becomes worth 4 zuz. So now what is the din? What does he have to pay back? Does he pay back lefi, the amount that he consumed? Or does he pay back the value at the time that he consumed it? Is it the 1 zuz, which is what he consumed it at? Or do we say, no, he consumed a kav of chitin, so therefore he has to pay back a kav of chitin now as well, even though now that kav of chitin, he's going to get less of a kav of chitin, because here we're talking about the chitin went from 1 to 4 zuz. So that same kav of chitin that would only cost 1 zuz at time of consumption, now is 4 zuz. It's considered to be worth more. So he'll get less, he'll get less of the chitin if he pays back that. So the Gemara's question is, what does he pay back? Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, or just to conclude the question, or does he pay back the fee the damim, since he consumed it at 1 zuz, he will pay back the 1 zuz. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Toshma, let's bring a proof. It says, Ochal groigerus v'shilem l'tmorim tavoy alav bracha. A person, a non-Kohen who ate figs, dried figs, groigerus, and he paid back with tmorim, with dates. It states over here, may a blessing be upon him. So now the Gemara says, if you're going to say that he paid back lefi the midah, the quantity of what he consumed, then amtu lahachi tavala bracha. Then that's the reason why it states that a bracha should be upon him, because he then consumed the amount of groigerus, and he paid back that amount in tmorim, and the assumption that tmorim is worth more. The ochel gravia de groigris, the shava zuza, v'kayoiv v'kashavia gravia de tmorim, the shavia arbo. So then we understand, because he consumed an amount of grogreris that was worth 1 zuz, and he paid back tmorim, which is worth more, that amount, which is now worth 4 zuz, because tmorim are worth more than the grogreris. So then we understand why it's taval of bracha. Eliyam is lefi dami mishalem. But if you're going to say that he's paying lefi the value, amai taval of bracha. Why is he taval of bracha? Bezuza ocha bezuza kamishalem. Either way, he's paying a zuz, and therefore, if he's paying the zuz from the beginning, so then it comes out that it's going to be a smaller amount, because the zuz that he paid for grogeris is now going to be paid off in the tmorim. That's not going to be tavel of bracha. It's going to be the same thing. It's not going to be anything greater. So therefore, why tavel of bracha? So therefore, we have a proof lechara that we're going to pay lefi the midah. Omar Abaye said la'olam lefi dam mishalim. You have no proof because you can say he pays lefi the damim. We ask, why is it tavel of bracha if he's going to pay back a zuz that's going to be the same value, just because he's paying back zuz of tmorim? Answers the Gemara, v'amai tavel of bracha da'acha midi de lekafitz alay zvine v'kameshan midi de kafitz alay zvina. The Gemara says no. Really, their value is the same, the grogeris and the tmorim. But what? When it comes to paying back tmorim, it has something that's more of a bikush, that people want to then buy it more, and therefore it's more desirable in the shuk. Therefore, tavel of bracha, that instead of paying back grogeris, he pays back the coin with tmorim. Says the Gemara, Tnan. Says the Gemara, Tnan. Ha'oichel trumas chametz v'pesach b'shoigeg mishalem keren v'chomesh. Our Mishnah states that a person who eats trumas chametz on Pesach, a non-kohen who eats that b'shoigeg, he doesn't realize that it's truma. Either he doesn't know that it's truma, or that he doesn't know that truma is off limits to a non-kohen. Al Kopan, he eats it, it's called b'shoigeg. He's meshalem, it says in the Mishnah, keren v'chomesh, the principle, as well as he adds a fifth. So iyam is bishlama lefi mida meshalem shapir. If you're going to say he pays lefi the mida, the amount, then we understand it's very well. Ela iyam is lefi damim meshalem chametz v'pesach mida by damim hu. But if you're going to say he's paying lefi the damim, but the chametz on Pesach, the truma, if it's chametz, it's valueless. So therefore, why is he having to pay back the truma, and the keren and the chomesh? Hare, there's no makom for it, because after all, it doesn't have any value. Says the Gemara, indeed it does. Because why? This is the shita that holds that chametz on Pesach does have hano. Homani Rabbi Yossi Aglili. This is Rabbi Yossi Aglili, who we learned before, holds of the shita that chametz on Pesach, certainly after Pesach, does have hana. You could have it's mutter bahana. The omar chametz b'pesach mutter bahana. Yihochi asked the Gemara, if this is Rabbi Yossi Aglili in the Mishnah, then ema seif. What are you going to do about the seif? B'meizid, it states potter minat tashlumin umidvei etzim, and we understood that to mean because why? Because since it doesn't have any value, and when he steals it, he's chayiv as a gazlan, so therefore he doesn't have to pay back. So if you're going to say, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that it's mutter behana, why doesn't he have to pay back? If he steals it, just like a gazlan steals, he would have to pay back the chametz of the truma. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, amai poter minat hashlumin umidvei etzim. Answers the Gemara, because Sover law, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, this also holds like Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Now, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, we saw earlier, he holds of the shita that not only do we say the principle of kam le b'derabba minei, which is said when we have a person who's chayiv, misa b'dei adam, and tashlumin. The classical example is he sets a fire of havara, he's over havara on Shabbos Kodesh, and he's given a warning whereby he's chayiv skila. At the same time, he burns down his neighbor's field. So it says that since he's chayiv misa b'dei adam skila, he's potter from the tashlumim. We say kam le b'derabim minei. Rav Nechunya ben Akanya extends this principle to a situation when a person is chayiv kars and even misa b'dei shomayim, according to this, and therefore he's going to be potter for the tashlumim. That's why over here he's going to be potter for the tashlumim, because somebody who eats, a non-kohen who eats truma b'meizid, he is going to be chayiv misa b'dei shomayim, whereby, according to Rabbi Nechunya ben Akanya, he's going to be potter from the tashlumim. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akanya, haya oise es yom kippurim keshabes l'tashlumin. So this is the principle, and therefore that's why he's potter. So it comes out that we say there are two now, we explain there are two explanations of our Mishnah. The first explanation of our Mishnah is talking about lefi, that we're meshalem lefi the midah, and therefore in the Reisha, when he pays back b'shoigeg what he ate, he pays back both the principal as well as the chaymesh, the additional 20%. And therefore we can explain the Seifa to say that when he ate it b'mezid, he's potter from tashlumim because it has no value. And therefore, that's the Man Da'omu says, Lefi mida meshalim. But we also learn now that you can also explain the Mishnah, Lefi dami meshalim, because since Rav Yossi HaGalileo says that chametz is muter behana, therefore he learns that over here is Lefi the damim, and therefore when he ate the Trumas Chametz on Pesach, he pays back the Keren and the Chomesh Lefi the Damim. What about the Seifa? Why is he potter when he eats b'mezid the Trumas Chametz? Because he holds like Reb Nechunim ben Akana that he's potter when he's chayiv misa b'dei shomayim, he's potter on the Tashlumin. Now the Gemara says Kitanoi. Let us say this is a machlokes Tanoim, whether it's lefi mida meshalim or lefi damim meshalim. Ha'oichel trumas chametz bepesach poter min hatashlumim b'dmei eitzim. Div Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says one who eats trumas Pesach bein b'shogi bein b'mezid on Pesach, he's going to be poter from. He's going to be poter from the tashlumin. That's according to Rabbi Akiva, as well as from the Dmei Eitzim. So not only is it going to be amazing, but even shoygeg, this is the sheet of Rabbi Akiva's potter. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri mechayev. Rabbi Yochanan argues and says mechayev. The Gemara now brings the rest of the brisa that shows the shakvataya between Rabbi Akiva and his bar plukto, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Omar lo Rabbi Akiva lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. V'chima hano yesh loy bo. What is the hana that he has that you're saying he's chayiv to pay back? In other words, Rabbi Akiva shows us over here that he holds that you're paying back is lefi the damim mishalim, and therefore, since anyways there is no value to the chametz, therefore it should be potter. Omar lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Rabbi Akiva. He responds back and he says, Ma hana yesh lo oicha truma tamei b'shah. What is the difference between Truma Tameya, the rest of the year, when we do require a person who eats Truma Tameya to pay back to the Kohen? There we see now that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's response shows, it indicates that he holds that you pay back Lefi the Mida Mishalim, because it has value. Omar Loi. So Rabbi Akiva says back to him, Loi. It's not the same. Im amris truma tameya b'shar yemos hashon shafa b'shein lo ba heter achila yesh lo ba heter asaka. There, by truma tameya, granted you cannot eat it, but you have the ability to then use it for your fire. In other words, you can heat up an oven with that truma tameya. But over here, the trumas chametz on Pesach does not have any heter, not heter achila, not heter asaka. What is this? Rabbi Akiva says compare it to lechumas tutim va'anovim shenitmei she'ein lo bo lo heter achil lo heter hasaka. This is compared to truma tmeya. If it's tutim, for example, strawberries or grapes, these type of things, since they have so much liquid inside of them, there they can't even be used for hasaka. So therefore they're valueless. And therefore that's the same thing. You would not have to require the non-kohen who ate it to return it to the kohen, because it has no value, not of achila, not hasaka. So too over here, the chametz on Pesach, the trumas chametz on Pesach, has no value, says Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Now the Brisa states, when is it a case when indeed the truma can become chametz? The truma can be chametz. Says the Brisa, b'mafrish truma v'hichmitza. If he was mafrish on Pesach truma, and that truma then itself on Pesach became chametz, or alternatively, he then was mafrish trumas chametz before Pesach. Aval mafrish trumas chametz divrei hakol eina kedusha. But the Brisa concludes by saying, if he's mafrish trumas chametz on Pesach, it will not be chal kedusha whatsoever. Everybody agrees to that. That's one Brisa. The Gemara now brings another brisa, a similar type of brisa, explaining that which we just said in regards to this type of shakla v'tarya, whether we say that it has value or not value, the chametz on Pesach. Tanya idach v'nosan lakohen es hahektish. Here it brings a pasuk, and I'll read you the entire pasuk in regards to truma. V'ish ki yoichal kodesh bishkaga. A person who will eat, kodesh refers to truma, and he does so b'shoigeg. V'yosef chamishiso alav. Not only does he pay back the truma that he ate, the principal, he must add a chumash, as we said until now. This is the source of the pasuk. The pasuk goes on to say, "V'nosan la'kohen es hakodesh," and he will return, he will give to the kohen the kodesh, the truma. That means he will give produce that will become truma now in the hands of the kohen once again. So now the brisa says like this: "V'nosan la'kohen es hakodesh," that the non-kohen who then ate b'shoigeg will give back to the kohen kodesh. That means he's going to give him a produce. Dover haroi lios kodesh. Bryce explains it has to be roi, some sort of produce that will be fitting to become kodesh once again in the hands of the kohen. It will become truma. Prat, this comes to exclude la'oichel trumas chametz ba Pesach shepoter min hatashlum midmei eitzim. Di Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov tells us this comes to exclude that trumas chametz that a person ate b'shoigeg on Pesach. That itself is going to be potter, because that itself does not have any value whatsoever. Because that is something that cannot become now truma. It cannot be given back to the kohen as truma. So that's excluded. Rabbi Elazar Chisma Mechayev. Rabbi Elazar Chisma, he argues and he says that you would have to return to the kohen something, the truma, back in place of what he ate. Omer lo Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Rabbi Chisma, the brisa continues and explains their shakvetar, which is similar to the shakvetar we just had in the previous brisa between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. V'chima hano yesh loiba. What is the hano that it has in it? Asked Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Does it have any hana? In other words, he also indicates that he says lefi the dami mishalim. It doesn't have any value. What is the difference between that and truma tmeya, which the one who ate the truma tmeya does have to return to the kohen? He said back to him, I'll tell you the difference. Amar loy im amarta b'truma tmeya b'shar yimois hashana she'afa b'she'in lo b'heter achila yesh lo b'heter asaka. Truma tmeya, granted you cannot eat it, but you can burn it and you can use it for your fuel, to fuel up your oven. And therefore, that's why the non-kohen has to pay that back to the kohen, because it does have value. But time bezu, when it comes to then trumas chametz, she'ein lo bo lo heter achila lo heter asaka, that doesn't have any, not benefit, not achila, not hasaka. So therefore there's a clear distinction. Omar loy. So he says back to him, Af bezu yesh loy bo heter hasaka. This does indeed have heter hasaka. In other words, even this trumas chametz has heter hasaka. Why? Because he holds the shita again of Yossi ben Yossi Aglili, that there is it's muter bahana, chametz is muter bahana, and therefore he says it does have heter asaka. Shimrotza hakayin meritza lifnei kalboy. If the kohen wants, he can then put it before his dog to eat. Or mesika tachat tavshila, or he can go ahead and burn it underneath his tavshil and use it as fuel, so you can get benefit from it. Again, this is the shita of Yossi ben Yossi Aglili. On top of 11 Beis Amud Beis. Now the Gemara comes back to our question, the reason why we brought this brisa, and we explained that there is machlokes tanoim, whether you say that it's lefi the mida mishalim or lefi the domi mishalim. Omar Abai explains, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, kulhu svir lehu chametz ba Pesach aser behana. They all hold that chametz on Pesach is aser behana. Now, truthfully, the focus is between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. In fact, even Rashi doesn't have the girsa of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but it's also true that they all hold that chametz on Pesach, Trumas chametz, does not have any hana, it's aser b'hana. In which case, the explanation of the machlok is as follows between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbi Akiva. Ubahapaligi, the Rabbi Akiva sovar lefi damim mishalim. Rabbi Akiva says that you pay for the damim, and therefore since you pay lefi the damim, the chametz, the trumas chametz doesn't have any value. That's why you're potter from paying back. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri sovar lefi mida mishalim, where he argues on Rabbi Akiva and he says lefi mida mishalim, and therefore you would be required to pay back. So therefore, that would be the machlokes tanoin that we said that again, whether you play mishalim lefi mida, lefi the damim. The Gemara says pshita, that's pashit that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds lefi the damim mishalim. I'm sorry, lefi the mida mishalim. That's pashit because he's arguing Rabbi Akiva and he's saying you'd have to return the truma that he ate from the kohen. So why would you think otherwise? Says the Gemara, no, ma would the same. You might think to say, the Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri nami, ki Rabbi Akiva svirulei, damer lefi dami mishalim, that he also holds that you pay lefi dami. If that's the case, why would he require the non-kohen who ate the truma, that truma's chametz, to give back to the kohen? Because v'hasam hainu taima de kamechai mishum the savar like Rabbi Yosef Galili, because he holds that that chametz is muter bahana like Rabbi Yosef Galili. The Omar Chametz Pesach Muter Bahana. Kamash Malon, that indeed Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is Cholik and Rabbi Akiva, and he holds no, it's not Muter Bahana, it's Aser Bahana. Why does he have to pay back? Because he holds the fee Mida Mishalim. Ask the Gemara Ve'ema Hachinami. The Gemara says, let's say Taka indeed that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri does hold, like Rabbi Yosef Galili, that the reason why he has to pay back is because it's muter bahana, and he does hold like Rabbi Akiva that it is lefi damim mishalim. The Gemara says that can't be because in Cain nahadar le Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Rabbi Akiva. Then Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri should respond to Rabbi Akiva, ki heichi de mahader le Rabbi Elazar chisma le Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The same way that Rabbi Elazar chisma responded to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov when he said that indeed I could go ahead and yes get hana from this chumas chametz because the kohen could then use it to give it to his kelev or he can use it as fuel. And since he did not respond in the same way that Rabbi Elazar chisma responded, it shows that he does not hold like Rabbi Galili that is mutter behana.